Welcome to a football show, the Robert Saleh, Tennessee Titans' new head football coach version of the show on a Tuesday. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessee, and I am Braden Gall, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. This is the crime scene investigation podcast, Nick. We'll do the autopsy later on this week. This is the immediate aftermath of the hiring process that results in Robert Saleh. Good afternoon, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to my white void in my office. This is my office backdrop. We are here talking about Robert Saleh.
How very Michael Scott of you. Office backdrop. I like it. So this will not be a super long conversation, but I wanted to, after PK and I spent most of yesterday kind of talking through this process, we expected something to maybe happen last night. It does come down in the middle of Curt Cignetti's national championship game and performance. If you're watching on YouTube, which thumbs up notifications turned on, you can see my Curt Cignetti shirt that I, was wearing last night and still today. It got washed. It got washed in between. Robert Saleh is the new head football coach of the Tennessee Titans. He is 46 years old. He's been the defensive coordinator for the Niners. He's been the head coach of the Jets. He's worked in Houston, in Jacksonville, in Seattle. He's worked in Green Bay for a year. He brings a ton of energy. We'll talk about his traits. We'll talk about his defenses, and we'll talk a little bit about the process. But again, this is the crime scene investigation, not the in-depth, long-form autopsy that will take place on Thursday. So, seventh head coach in Tennessee Titans history, if you count Mike McCoy. Only two of them have winning records, which is Jeff Fisher and, of course, Mike Vrabel. I'm going to start quickly, Nick, with just the basic. This is being oversimplified, I think, by folks that are on the outside of Nashville, outside of the fan base, outside of the media, as trying to replicate Mike Vrabel because of his traits. Robert Saleh's traits. You and I talked a lot about the traits that Tennessee was looking for, Mike Morganzi was looking for. So I want to start there. Is that oversimplifying this? Are there things that overlap with Mike Vrabel? Are those the things the Titans wanted and then therefore went and got in Robert Saleh, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, the oversimplification is that there are two kinds of coaches in the National Football League. There are offensive coaches who get to be schemers and get to be football geniuses, and there are defensive coaches who get to be leadership tough guys. Obviously, that's an oversimplification, but it's the easiest way to reduce this. Saleh is a really good defensive schemer. He is a very smart defensive coach, especially when it comes to pass defense. I think when you are hiring this guy, you are looking for those defensive traits. You're also looking for the CEO, the leadership, the ability to rally players around. And depending on which reports you read, I was doing this afternoon, or this morning rather. If you read ESPN's report from the day that Robert Saleh was fired, ESPN writes, there are no indications that Saleh lost the locker room. Everybody was playing tough for Robert Saleh. Everybody loved him here. And if you read the Athletics report from the day Robert Saleh got fired, you'll read, yeah, there's some indications that the guys on defense got pretty frustrated that the offense wasn't keeping up, that the offense was continuing to struggle, and the defense was starting to get divided, and there were some people that were losing faith in Saleh for not making more drastic changes to Nathaniel Hackett or whoever was calling the offense at that point. Whatever you want to say, whatever you want to reduce it to, the fact is that Robert Saleh reputationally is a guy that his players like to play for. Reputationally is a guy who has a specific culture in mind that he wants his team to embody and who brings success with him on defense. His offenses, no, really bad. Really, really bad. They were not good. The 2023 Jets, by EPA per play, were the worst offense in the NFL across the last 4 seasons. That was the Nathaniel Hackett year where Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles on play 2. That team, worst offense of the last 4 years. Obviously, you don't want to replicate that, and that has to be mentioned. Robert Saleh's career winning percentage as a head coach is worse than Mike McCoy's. We have to mention the Jets' tenure did not work, but the positive traits, the things you like about him, the culture setting, the defensive skill, all of that aligns. And you know what else aligns? The two things that the Jets could not get right roster-wise while Saleh was there were quarterback and offensive line. Those are the two things the Titans have spent the last 4 years investing the most in, and the two things Saleh will not have to worry about building right now in year one. So if you're saying, oh, exonerate him from the two things he couldn't find. Those are the two things Titans fans actually have to feel a little bit good about right now. So yeah, it's not a perfect hire, but if we're just looking at the CSI, it totally adds up.
20-36 as the head coach. The Jets over that period of time were on defense, number 1 in points per drive allowed, number 1 in EPA per play, number 3 in success rate. Offensively, to your point, it's a pretty bizarre concoction, to be honest. Now, he has to be discredited, I guess is the word, with the Zach Wilson decision to draft him when they did. He was the head coach when they made that pick. So whatever that means. Aaron Rodgers picked Nathaniel Hackett, not the other way around, and then got hurt. That's a bizarre situation. It just is what it is. It's important context. The fact that the general manager didn't make the decision to fire him is important context and bizarre. The fact that the reports are that the owner's son is running around running the team like a Madden game, also unsure how much that is true in terms of like each decision, but it's important context. But also, to your point, 20-36. Here's other context that I think is important. He's been hired by Dom Capers and Vic Fangio. He was hired by Pete Carroll. He was hired by Gus Bradley, Kyle Shanahan, and Matt LaFleur. And then Kyle Shanahan again. Those are all pretty good coaches that have a pretty good track record of success, development, etc. The reports from San Francisco, albeit a far more stable and respectable organization, across the board positive about all the things that he does, which is, I think, the words that I'm using are adjectives here, which is energy and adaptability. The thing you hear a lot from his defensive players are that the defense is never the same, that what he was running in San Francisco before the Jets and what he was running last year were totally different. Maybe not totally different, but had evolved and adapted. He had 2 major injuries this past year. And the statistics on his defenses are, when you hire Robert Saleh, the defense gets good. And when you don't have Robert Saleh, the defense gets worse. And that is basically the truth everywhere he has been.
Yes. Let's add in one more thing. Just when we're talking about defensive preferences, defensive scheme, those 2022 Jets, which were, number 2 in yards per play, number 4 in scoring defense and total defense, least blitz-happy team in the NFL. Those 2023 Jets that were number 1 in defensive yards per play, number 3 in total defense, second least blitz-happy team in the NFL. This is a guy who beats you with base. This is a guy who isn't going to get exotic, who isn't going to try and trick you. His players just play well. And that, if we're talking about the similarities to great Titans teams of the past, that is very similar to what worked for Jim Schwartz's teams. That is something that will be interesting to see if he tries to replicate in Nashville, because the Titans don't have the personnel to beat you with blitzers right now. So can he get these guys up front to play well on their own?
San Francisco, by the way, the least pressure-heavy team in the NFL this year, I believe. They had the fewest pressure rate, fewest sacks. Some of that was because their 2 best players on defense, Bosa and Warner, had been out. They were, I believe, I'm double-checking this, I believe that San Francisco, I'm trying to find my own notes here, which is they were 29th in yards per play and points per game the year before. Salah was there with Nick Sorensen. They bring in Salah, and they immediately go to 13th without the 2 best players on the defense. I think there's going to be more than just base, but I do think that this team is going to go to a 4-3. I think that is what they're going to do. He's got all kinds of wide nines and all kinds of other things that he likes to deploy, but most of the immediate crime scene investigation is not going to be about how does the offensive coordinator manage Cam Ward and how does Salah's leadership fit with the staff. And like we'll have time to discuss whether or not Bones Fossil or Luke Stocker are still on the coaching staff. Like there's lots of time for that. This is just here's who this guy is. Here's why I think personally the coaching search was as well conducted as it probably could have been. John Harbaugh, you want to say he's the best big fish on the market? I'm fine with that. New York's maybe a better job, better roster, better everything. Went to New York. No problem with that. Doesn't indict the Titans organization. You could argue Robert Saleh was the next best candidate on the board. Unless you believe in Sean McDermott, which you can. The defense is in eight playoff games or whatever, 16 playoff games. Not great for Sean McDermott. Now that I've dug into the numbers a little bit more. You could argue this was the second best candidate on the board after John Harbaugh. Maybe ahead of Stefanski, maybe behind him, depending on what you think.
You could also argue that the Titans was the second best job on the market of the of the non-Ravens,
sure,
like of the original teams that came available. Yeah.
So I am a little surprised that Mike Borgonzi decided to go against relationship, go against the 8 years, go against the devil he knows in Matt Nagy, to go with the devil he doesn't know with Robert Saleh. I think it is the right choice. Famous last words for a talking head. But at the end of the day, I am impressed with, and I'm going to go back to Chad Brinker and his decision to go against his own relationships to hire Mike Borgonzi in the first place. He had Sullivan, I believe, from Green Bay, who was the second candidate. He broke with trend to hire the guy he thought was the best football mind. Now the football mind guy is breaking with his own relationships. So I don't know if that actually makes these the right decisions, but I think Brinker made the right decision. And I personally, at this point, less than 24 hours without an official announcement, I think Robert Saleh was the right choice, certainly of the 3 finalists, and I would have had him in the top 2 or 3 from the beginning of the 16 to 18 to 20 person list that they started with. Where are you at on that?
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys have heard me say this for 2 years or however long we've done this show. I'm a really big proponent of remembering what you said at the beginning. And if we go back to October 10th or whenever Callahan was fired and play the who was the number 1 candidate on everybody's board then, the first name everybody said was Robert Saleh. It's January 20th. A lot has changed. We did not know Harbaugh would be available. We did not know McDermott would be available. We probably expected Stefanski to be available, let's be real, but we didn't know all that. But Titans, when they were the first team to fire a coach, the thought was, oh, well, are they now in position to hire the best guy? Are they giving themselves the most time to hire Robert Saleh? They gave themselves the most time, and they hired the guy who at that time was considered the best guy on the market. It worked the way everybody thought it was going to work. Are you happy about it? That's up to you. But we go back to October 10th and I say, Titans are going to hire Robert Saleh on January 19th. You'll probably be like, oh, rad. Let's see how that works.
And I think the Coaching Candidates 2.0 show that you and I did the Thursday after the regular season finale, I went back and checked my notes. Here they are. And I have right up here at the top of the list, and I'm sure someone can zoom in on YouTube and clip this and look at the photos, but I have Harbaugh 1, Stefanski 2, Saleh 3 written down right there. And even then, I wasn't sold on who should be 2 or 3. I knew Harbaugh was 1, and I felt like Stefanski was 2, but I didn't have a major gap there. I think I had Flores at 5, and then I think as a part of that show, I said, but if you end up with either Arthur Smith or Matt Nagy, and that's the bottom line, it's a pretty good candidate pool for the Titans to pull from. And I think they did a good job on this. I think they handled it well. I think they cast a wide net with a variety of different types of coaches. A lot of Robert Saleh's success or failure is going to be dependent on how he builds a staff and who is going to be managing his offense. So I just think there's a I want to be I'm hesitant to say this, but here we are. The reason this process was run better than all the other processes is because the best football mind in the building the last 8 years was running the process. That's my perspective on this. John Robinson was a very good general manager up until, let's say, 2019-ish, when the draft started going sideways, when he trades A.J. Brown. All of that starts to go sideways, and he starts to lose his touch, and he loses respect within the building, and we all know kind of what happens. But the process to fire Vrabel, the process to hire Carthon, the process to hire Brinker, and the process to hire Callahan all was more complicated and more messy than it needed to be, in large part because they did not have a structure in place with someone with a football mind doing football things and making football decisions. I don't know if Robert Saleh is going to work out. I don't know if Mike Borgonzi is going to work out. Nobody does. But this process was the best process they've had in a while in this area of making a decision. And I think that is because Mike Borgonzi was running it. That's my opinion. Your response.
I think I said this to Stillman the other day. Look, I do not necessarily believe in the perfect leadership principle, in the one great man theory, that you need one person to be in charge, that one great person is always going to be better than great people collaborating. I do not believe that. I don't think there is one correct way to succeed. But I think you can succeed in a lot of different ways. And if the Titans have found the one great man, if the Titans have found one person they trust to be a true chief football executive, and if the decision is let Borgonzi make these decisions, trust it until it doesn't work. And if this is the time it doesn't work, you lose trust. But it hasn't failed yet. You trust, you like what he did in the first year. You enabled him to have this power through the coaching search. You elevated him. You changed the maneuvers of somebody he liked. Is it going to work? We got no clue. No, nobody knows any idea.
So
Go ahead.
So your advice is invest in the Borgonzi scheme? Is that what we're doing? Just put your money in the Borgonzi scheme? I'm workshopping it, so we'll see.
Just say what you want to say.
So I think, look, there's a lot of you guys in the comments. I don't like that. I felt that going back towards a Vrabel-ish type of structure and culture is what I wanted, but it is, to your point about the two different kinds of coaches, it is what works really well, and it's what worked really well here. I saw it work really well firsthand, and I do think that's built similarly. I do think Robert Saleh has more of a track record for designing and scheming a defense than Mike Vrabel does. I think the stats kind of bear that out, both as a head coach and a coordinator. And so, again, I think this is not going to be a long show. We're on here to kind of just chat through this. I don't know who, Brian Daboll, Mike McDaniel. You want to see a really great offensive mind come in here. I think Mike McDaniel, who was his really close friend in San Francisco, I think would be an incredible asset to this team, especially if it's just for 1 year and he's going to go on to be a head coach elsewhere. But here's the deal. It's not even worth us discussing because there are still 7, 8 other coaching openings that are going to churn through coordinators and coaching staffs at a very rapid pace over the course of the next week and a half. And we're just not going to know who the candidates are for that job just yet. We know who he knows. We know who's been rumored, all of that kind of stuff. But this is mostly about Robert Saleh. Now, the question is, what should expectations be, Nick, for a very quick turnaround that we've seen very successful in other places? What is the reasonable expectation considering the quarterback's in place, the offensive line's in place? There were reports that a lot of candidates really liked Cam Ward as a candidate and a quarterback that, to your point, made them an attractive job. And with a ton of cap space and with the top 5 pick, granted, not an elite draft class necessarily, what do you make of actual expectations for rebuilding a culture, tearing it down, building it back up again, and then actually trying to win games next year?
Yeah, as I kind of said last week, when you hire a retread coach searching for stability after a period of instability, getting to that 7-10 mark is what you're looking for in year one. I'm not saying they get there. I am by no means guaranteeing this, but you don't go hire somebody who has done this before without the goal of being competitive quick. This is not a long-term investment. This is the Titans just hired a guy who they believe knows what he's doing right now situation. So I don't think it's 7 wins or bust. That is a sad thing to say in the National Football League. But I think that the expectation is that the Titans hired Robert Saleh to start trying to be competitive this year, not to start trying to be competitive in 27 or 28.
So I agree with that. I think 7-ish is about right. I think, as I say with all college and pro teams around the expectation question, how it looks is more important than the actual win total. If the offense looks better because the coordinator was the right hire and the defense looks more organized and plays more dependable football, Cedric Gray, I imagine, will flourish in this with this hire. If I'm Simmons and Gray, I'm very excited about this hire. It depends on how it looks. I'm okay with 6 if it looks like they are clearly making major progress. If they get to 8 and it's all fluky, you can make the case that it's just as concerning. So it's more about how it looks to me than anything else. Really interesting question here from Z Dean, and I'm not trying to take too many comments on this show because we're going to be fast, but Salah is definitely better at schemes, but curious about his in-game management. Can't remember how he did with the Jets. I don't know where you're at on that, but if I'm asking questions about Robert Saleh, it's not about his personality. It's not about his leadership skills, his psychology. I don't think it's about how he calls the defense. I don't think it's about how he relates to a locker room, because it seems like he is very likable by most of the teams. I think most of the players and everywhere he's been are very high praise for him. But what makes Vrabel really actually special, and what makes him one of the best coaches in the world, is his ability to manage the game's not even fair. It's manipulate the game. He knows how to manipulate the game to maximize his team's position inside of the game. It's hard to put anybody up against that standard. What are the biggest question marks around Robert Saleh in terms of, outside of just picking an offensive coordinator? What are the biggest questions that you need to see him kind of prove to everybody?
Two things real quick. Discipline, starting fast. Those were the two things that if you talk to Jets people, that is what made the wheels fall off in 2024. That in 2023, the Jets were the most penalized team in the NFL. They also committed the third most turnovers in the NFL in 2023. The fact that that team went 7-10 is wild. That defense was really good. But they were an incredibly high-volume penalized team in 2023. And then to start 2024, they committed a lot of penalties. That was not fixed. The same can be said of starting fast offensively. If I remember reading this correctly, in 2024, those first 5 games, the Jets had more first-quarter penalties than they did points in Saleh's first 5 games. The ability to start fast, the ability to play close, to not have to play from behind, is going to need to be something that's rectified. The ability to play clean, not have these penalties and turnovers, is something that's going to need to be rectified. His offensive lines were never good. That created a lot of pressures, created a lot of turnovers. We all understand that. But when you're talking about in-game management, we saw how big of a problem it is these last couple of years with Callahan, when the Titans are constantly playing from behind and when the Titans are self-inflicting these errors. Those are two things that were problematic for Saleh's Jets teams, especially the last 2 years. So that's going to be the management stuff you have to watch for immediately.
If Nick Suss today was talking to Nick Suss, the 10-year-old, and the 10-year-old asks today's Nick Suss, hey, should I be excited about this? Was this a good decision by the Tennessee Titans? What does current Nick Suss tell 10-year-old Nick Suss, who those that don't know and are new to the program, was a Titans fan growing up?
Did you talk to my dad? Because he asked me that same question last night.
Did he really? Great minds, Suss.
I'd say be excited. I would say this is a hire that points toward what the strongest eras of Titans football have pointed toward. If you believe in the vitality of organizational identity, not just momentary, but historic identity, if you believe that teams function best when they play like the best versions of their teams that used to play well, if you believe in that, Robert Saleh is a coach of that mold. He is not Mike Vrabel. He is not Jeff Fisher. I'm not saying he's those guys. But what I am saying is that the best Titans teams were defense, were run game, were beat the crap out of you physical, were teams that knew they weren't going to win on star power, so had to win on might. I don't know if it's going to work. Obviously, a lot of teams say we want to be physical. We've got fast, physical, relentless jokes in the comments right now. Obviously, every football team is going to want to say, well, we just got to be bigger and stronger and faster and more efficient and we'll win. Yeah, for sure. Right. You're right. But if you are nostalgic for what 2019 felt like, if you are nostalgic for what 2008 felt like, if you're nostalgic for what 2000 felt like, this is a step toward trying to be that again. Who knows if they will be that again, but it's a step toward it.
Z Dean, commenter of the day, current Nick Suss would tell young Nick Suss to pick a different team. Coach better, play better as well. Yes, Jess, this is my Kurt Signetti T-shirt. That is great.
You want to end this with something that I wouldn't tell 10-year-old Nick Suss because it's way too heady, and it's the introduction of a new segment called Really, Really Geeky Corner.
All right. Well, I wanted to end with like a positive kind of broad advice for everybody. So take us to Really, Really Geek Corner before we end.
some people might know my favorite passion in the world when talking about football is analyzing how many letters and syllables are in coaches' names. If you guys don't know this about me, it is something that I am obsessed with. Robert Saleh needs to go by either Rob or Bob. Historically, there are only
Bob Salah?
There are only 7 coaches of the 250 winningest coaches in the National Football League's history who went by a name that could easily be shortened to a conventional nickname and did not go by that name. There are no Michaels that have ever coached an NFL game. There are no Matthews that have ever coached an NFL game. Mike's coach NFL games, Matt's coach NFL games. If we're talking about the sample of guys who do go by the full name, who have been in the top 250 winningest coaches, that means you have 14 wins. That's all it takes to be in the top 250. The most successful guys are Marvin Lewis, who didn't go by Marv, Raymond Berry, who didn't go by Ray, and Anthony Lynn, who didn't go by Tony. That's the best standard if he's not going by Rob or Bob. You got to shorten this name. You gotta. You just truly cannot go by Robert. History says what history says.
Yeah.
You got to shorten that name. William Belichick would not have won 6 Super Bowls.
Of course not. Of course not.
Thomas Landry wouldn't have won multiple Super Bowls.
I also don't. But I don't think Rob Saleh does. But I think Bob Saleh does.
Yeah.
I think Bob Saleh. That's amazing. By the way, this is why we're not listening to Nicholas Suss right now.
Correct. Yeah, no. You if you can shorten the name, you got to shorten it to be a great coach. I've said this before. Out of the 100 winningest coaches in NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL history, 1 has a 3-syllable name, Felipe Alou, and that's still only 6 letters. That's a short name.
Can I posit a theory though on this, which is that to be on a athletic field, and I'm going to say this even about like my 9U and 8U soccer teams that my girls play on. Everybody has to have a quick short name when you're playing sports. Like everybody, coach, players, you got to have short names or nicknames because it's the only way you can communicate inside of a sport. And even when youth are doing it, it's fast and you need a short name. Much less at the NFL level. You gotta have quick communication.
And go ahead and remind me, what was the name of the offensive coordinator that got Bob Saleh fired in New York?
Nathaniel. Nate Hackett.
Nate Hackett. He's still coach of the Jets. Nathaniel Hackett. They all get fired in year 4.
Nate can't hack it. All right. So we'll see if you at the first press conference ask him, will he shorten his name to either Robert or Bob?
Call yourself Bob.
Have you considered the statistics on 2-syllable first name NFL coaches? Mr.
2 syllables, fine. It's just the nickname that we need to rectify.
Okay.
Like Andy is fine because it's not Andrew.
Fair. Okay. All right. There you go. This is the content you are all here for. So I'll end it with a much more predictable plea and ploy to everybody.
Really geeky corner.
Really geek corner, which honestly is also a callback to a previous geek corner as well. Look, here's the deal, and at the risk of sounding way too much like PK, everybody deserves a clean slate in all of this. If they hired the guy you loved, don't go all in on him. Give him a clean slate and analyze what happens. If they hired the guy you didn't love, don't go all in on it in a negative way. Give him a clean slate and give him a chance. I think that's the only way to do this. It is an inexact science to hire coaches. We have no idea about inexperienced head coaches and only a little bit more of an idea around experienced head coaches. There's very few people that are proven commodities that you know exactly what you're going to get when it comes to a head coach. So I think this is a great hire. The process was tighter, and I think fans can be excited about the future of their team. But I would be cautious about how much total unadulterated faith you put in a bunch of people who have never won a playoff game. So I just think that it's okay to kind of find a middle ground. And I realize that doesn't get clicks. That doesn't drive ratings on radio, and it doesn't get clicks on the website, and it doesn't drive traffic on YouTube. But it's the reality of the situation. Let's see what he does.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about coordinators. Brian Daboll and Mike McDaniel are the dream scenario that I think I would prefer to see. But the truth is they're probably going to end up with somebody else that we don't know a whole lot about.
Yeah. Tennessean.com, I put up a list of 18 potential candidates.
All right.
Some of them are names you've heard of. Some of them are names you've never heard of. Some of them are former players like Alex Tanney and Wes Welker, who are coaches. So I'm like, hey, that's funny. It's coordinator season. You throw out names.
Give me the names on the top tier, like the whatever that is, 3 to 4 names that you think would be the best for Cam Ward. And the new culture that Salah is going to set.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 names that people are going to throw out are Brian Daboll, Mike McDaniel, Arthur Smith. Obviously we know those guys are good offensive coordinators. That's why they got head coaching opportunities in the first place. Let me scroll through the list to find some other.
I really like Arthur Smith. Paul did too on Monday. I think he's a better offensive coordinator than people realize, and I think would do a very good job.
There were 1 or 2 other names that I had on here that I thought were fairly interesting.
I don't want Mike LaFleur.
If Todd Monken's available,
I'm not trying to be rude to Mike LaFleur, but I don't want Mike LaFleur.
Yeah, if Todd Monken's available, if Tommy Reese is available, some of these guys, Joe Brady, we just don't know where they're going to be. And then there's a couple of guys who he would have overlapped with from that gap here last year in Green Bay, talking about like Sean Mannion, their quarterback's coach, talking about Luke Getsy, who's in Green Bay right now, a former offensive coordinator who I believe – no, not him. Mick Lombardi is the one who is in San Francisco right now who would have overlapped with Ziegler in Vegas as an offensive coordinator there. And then Frank Smith, who, if it's not McDaniel, you're hiring McDaniel's old deputy. 2 years ago, Frank Smith was getting a lot of offensive head coaching looks. Obviously, his star has faded as the Dolphins' star has faded. But that is another name that if you can't get McDaniel, go get the guy who worked with McDaniel for 4 years.
Ed Henry says, I assume this will be Salah's choice and not prearranged. Are you referring to sort of the Denard Wilson, Brian Callahan of it all? I would hope that Robert Saleh picks his choice with approval from Borgonzi or help or assistance from Borgonzi.
Yeah, my guess is what Ed's talking about here is that there isn't a mandate that, well, we wanted Matt Nagy, so go hire him as your OC. I do not believe that mandate's in place, but we'll see.
This is not Auburn. This is the Tennessee Titans. Just keep in mind, Z Dean said in 2022, 10 teams hired new head coaches. Only 2 of them are still employed. 9 coaches will be hired this year. How many make it past year 3? Probably 2 or 3 of them will make it past. Here we go. Albert Breer reporting it was Borgonzi. I don't have confirmation of this, so QC, you better be right. Breer reporting that Borgonzi's recommendation was to hire Salah, so we can finally put that stuff to rest, that Amy Adams Strunk stepped in. Paul Kaharski has already debunked that rumor as well.
And also ESPN retracted the report.
What's here? I'll take us right back to end this entire thing at Geek Corner. But Sinkers Beverages, of course, 5-time liquor store of the year. Fantastic place to get your beverages. Dry January almost over, mercifully. So make sure you go check out Sinkers Beverages for all your dry and or alcoholic needs. They've got other stuff in there as well. Award-winning Uber Eats. You can search and have the booze delivered directly to your house. We're going to be back on Thursday. But here, I'll leave you with this. I'm pretty sure one of the names that you just mentioned when he left college was the all-time leading passer in Pac-12 history at Oregon State. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I mean, yeah, you pretty much narrowed it down to one of the people I named. I know you're talking about Sean Mannion, but
good. I wanted to make sure you came along with me because you go to certain types of Geek Corners. I go to different types of Geek Corners, but you kind of live in all of them. So I do appreciate that. Sean Mannion, everybody. Pac-12's all-time leading passer when he left college. Okay, we'll be back on Thursday. We'll do a little bit more of an autopsy on this, a little bit deeper into the process. Hopefully, we'll have a press conference by then. I don't know. I don't think so.
We might have a press conference that day, so we might have to play with times a little bit. But who knows? Maybe then, maybe Friday. We'll hope for one soon.
If it's later in the afternoon on a Thursday, we will be live on Friday morning. If it's early that morning, then we'll probably go in the afternoon. So just stay tuned. Keep the notifications turned on and all that good stuff. But I wanted to give you guys something as soon as we found out. And you know what? Congratulations to Indiana. What a great story. What a phenomenal story. Great football game. Great. The whole thing was just great. It made me feel good. It made me reminded me of why I love sports, honestly. So.
And to QC and Jess and all you guys, I did not realize that you guys enjoyed my annoyingly loud cat as much as you do. Yes, I will probably be back at home on Thursday or Friday. You will get to hear my cat scream at me for an hour.
It's a bit. It's a character on the show now. So
it is. It's true.
Tennessean.com for all of Nick's work. It is worth it. to go read all of Nick's work, Tennessean.com. Subscribe to all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll have a much longer deep dive and an autopsy into this whole thing. But Titans fans, be excited about Robert Saleh as the new head football coach. We'll talk to you later.